Hi, and welcome back to Grassroots Crypto, where I like to teach people about crypto. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about TCY. I'm going to be covering what is TCY, how's it been doing, because it's been out for a couple of weeks, go through the claim process, the entire TCY process in detail, and then talk about the buyback pressures, as well as try and answer the question of when will TCY become $1. As always, there's a bit to get through, so let's get started. First, what is TCY? We can look at the launch article here. TCY is a new token on THORChain created specifically to address the default of THORFi. So THORFi was paused, a certain block here, and there was some outstanding debt. And then this TCY has been launched, and there's a 1-to-1 ratio so for every dollar that was owed, one TCY has been created for THORFi users. TCY came out of Proposal 6. You can read more about the TCY launch here, as well as go to this article to have a look at all the background and how it all came about. Or you can also see my previous video here, I think here, that gives more about the background about how TCY came about. So let's have a look how TCY is going. We've got a great dashboard here with some stats from THORChain.net. I just want to walk through this dashboard so we can understand how to read this dashboard and get a bit of an idea where things are at. So we have here, I'll start with the economics. Fixed supply, 21 million, and then that's the market cap. That's about 9% or 9.6% of the Runes market cap, and that's the current price. Remembering that started at 10%, it's gone up well above 50 cents. Now it's down to 35. Obviously, it's going to fluctuate depending on what the market and I guess the macro conditions are as well, the general market conditions. Then there's some earning and APR data here as well you can look at. If we go back to claim, this is the amount of people that have claimed their TCY. So 72% have claimed. Obviously there was some concentration of TCY in some wallets. That's why it's like 26%. You can go over to this website here, the Rune Tools TCY claims, and you can have a look. Obviously some wallets here had quite a significant TCY. And then some of them, have very little amounts. You can put in, if you're wondering can I claim? You can put your address here and it'll tell you whether or not you're on that list or not, and whether or not you've claimed. Back to the dashboard. And then, so we've got the claimed amount, and obviously the unclaimed amount is the opposite of that. Now we have the stakers. So we have this many wallets that are staked, and these are the people earning rewards in Rune. You don't earn it in TCY, you earn it in Rune. That's how much TCY, and that's the reward. So these rewards are paid every day in multiples of 2100 Rune. So they build up during the day, and then about every day they're paid. So you can see there's about 5,200. So there's probably going to be at least 2 multiples paid in that day. And then that's when the next payout's going to be. Then we have the others, and we want to say non-staked, but non-staked is already here. So the others comprises of anything that is not staked, essentially, and that definition will extend when smart contracts come into it, to anything that's not in a staking module. So within the others, we have the TCY that's in the liquidity pool, the Rune TCY pool, which is about the only place you can swap. We have non-staked that's sitting in a wallet. Maybe that's in the treasury. Maybe that's just in someone's wallet. They've staked it, unstaked it, sitting there for whatever reason. And then we have what the protocol has purchased. So we'll go through the details, but the protocol is purchasing TCY for all of the really the unstaked rewards is what goes to the protocol that purchases that, and it also takes the pool fees, the TCY pool fees, and purchases TCY with that revenue. So this amount of TCY protocol owns, and it's not going to be sold. There's no mechanisms for the protocol to sell. Over here we have a graph that kind of shows this, demonstrates this in a nice pretty graph form, which is great. So then we have this nice little graph down here that shows us the pool fees and the stake earnings. So as an example, TCY pool fees at $250, that was in Rune, was used to buy TCY that the protocol owned, and then because that's the revenue, the swap fee revenue from the pool, and then we have the staking earnings of $20,000, and that would have gone to the stakers here that are distributed proportionally depending on how much TCY that they've actually staked. The more volume THORChain does, the more system income it does, more revenue, the higher the stake earnings are, which will also be the more the protocol owns, as well as the more traffic that goes across the liquidity pool, the more fees are generated and the more that the protocol will be buying TCY. We'll look at all the details in a second, but that gives you a bit of an idea where things are at and how things are tracking and how to read this particular dashboard. Now let's go over the claim process quickly. Now, as I said, TCY was created one for one for every dollar of debt. There's one TCY that's claimable. And that's for anyone that had savers, borrowers, as well as synth holders, or kind of like raw synthetics that were not attached to savers. In order to send a claim instruction to THORChain, you must send it from the account that was utilized within THORFi. So if you had, say, BTC in savers, you need to use that, send it from that BTC address. And to know whether or not you are claimable, you can punch your address in here and that'll tell you, as an example, whether or not you can claim TCY. Obviously these are all claimed, you'd put one in and it would have a different icon if, for example, it wasn't claimed. So this would be an EVM address, punch that in, oh yeah, I can get 3,432 TCY if I claim. But it needs to be sent from that particular address. The transaction, as in what you send, must be above the dust threshold. The dust threshold is the minimum amount you need to send to THORChain for it to process an instruction. So it's nothing to do, or nothing specific with TCY, it's to do with anything. And when you're interacting with THORFi, and just say you had savers, you want to withdraw, the same requirement would have been there. So there's nothing different with TCY. And if you don't know what the dust thresholds are, if you go to this website, the tcy.thorchain.org, you click on this, it's going to tell you. Obviously, front ends will take care of this. They should be looking at your address and looking at your balances and ensure that you've got, at least this amount in the wallet you're trying to claim from, plus gas, so that you're going to be sending a valid transaction and it's not going to be rejected. But these are the minimum amounts you'll need in addition to the gas fees in order to claim. But again, front end interfaces like this should take care of all those things for you. You need to send one claim per chain, except for EVM. And what that means is, so if we go over here, if you've got like, you had something in Bitcoin, BCH, Doge, Litecoin, just say you had savers in all of them, you would need to send one transaction per chain. And same for Cosmos or Thor. However, for EVM, it's because they utilize the same address. If you send something from, just say you had Ethereum as well as AVAX savers, if you send a transaction from AVAX, like a claim from the AVAX address, then you would obviously get, everything would be combined. You'd only need one transaction for any one of these chains. Noting base was never used within THORFi, so you wouldn't have to do base. The memo to use is TCY if you want to do this manually, and then, as I said, that's automatically staked. It goes from the claimers module to the staking module. There's a lot of detail here, and there's some more specific details over here. Understand that there's all these front ends that do this for you. You don't really need to know the details. You just need to ensure you've got enough for the dust and the gas, which the front end should help you. And then the interface should really take care of all the other specific details. This is the list of the interfaces. However, they are growing, so this is probably out of date. Just check with your favorite interface whether or not they support the claim and then the stake unstake process for TCY. So now I'm going to go over the details of TCY so you can understand, well, how to read this dashboard a bit more, particularly this part here. Understand some of the built-in buyback pressures and what's going to happen into the future with regards to TCY. This is my take on a more technical version here. This is what the devs had. However, there is a simplified version here made by Sam Yap, so use whatever works for you. Obviously, I'm going to be using my picture. So from the left On the top left, you have the claim it here, and then they claim, and we just talked about that. That once they claim or issues a TCY and then sends that over to the stakers module, and then those stakers earn rewards in Rune. So that's what we're talking about over here, and they earn that daily. Then we come over to the THORChain gross income, and 10% of the gross income is taken aside and moved towards TCY. And to explain that, we'll just go over here a little bit. So if we have, interfaces, whatever, however it comes, we have fees that are generated, e.g. swap fees, from each pool except for the TCY pool, so except for this pool over here. In addition to block rewards, which are next to nothing now, and then those two constitute gross income. Then 10% of that, this 10% is going to be this 10% over here. So from that 10%, it builds up and is dispersed in multiples of 2100 Rune. And that's because the max supply is 21 million. So you kind of get about this much per TCY, regardless of where it is and who holds it. So whether it's claimed, unclaimed, like whatever. So for the staked portion, so just say there's, 60% of TCY that's staked, I'm just making up that number, then 60% would go to the staking module, and then the rest of it, the unclaimed rewards, that's the others in this example, the pooled, non-staked, and the protocol owned, so the rewards for those would go to the claimers module. From there, and this is all in Rune by the way, the claimers module would then take that Rune to the liquidity pool and swap that for TCY and then hold that. So this is like a buyback and accumulate of TCY. In addition to this, the treasury is doing routine buybacks. So it's taking Rune from its treasury approximately weekly and then swapping that for TCY. You have traders that go along and they're just trading TCY. So maybe they've got it and then they've unstaked it and sold it. Or they're thinking TCY is such a great thing. I'm going to go ahead and buy some, like they'll never in THORify, but they're buying some. Either way, they're trading TCY for whatever reason. Also, at the end of each day, the swap fees from the TCY pool, which are in Rune, go to the claimers module. It's about the same time this happens. And that is also swapped for TCY. So that's the current state. That's how things work now. And the TLDR is the protocol is in the claimers module, and the swap fees are being used to buy TCY daily. So there's some built-in buyback pressure here, as well as the treasury doing routine buybacks and general speculation by traders. So as I said, that's the current. And in the next release, I think 37, they're going to introduce a TCY staking contract that's going to be sitting in the app layer. That's on top of THORChain. You can see my previous videos regarding the app layer. And then this will allow TCY stakers to earn TCY on their TCY. So these stakers here are earning rewards in Rune. It's just literally every day directly increasing their Rune balance like an airdrop. It's pretty cool. Whereas these TCY stakers would be having their TCY increased. And then they'll actually have a token. I understand it's going to be like a liquid staking TCY token that can be utilized within the app layer. But I'm probably getting ahead of myself. In order to do this, the TCY staking contract will need to be taking its rewards in Rune, so the stake rewards in Rune, just like the staking module. But like if it had 10,000 say TCY here, it's going to be earning the rewards for 10,000 worth of TCY from the 10%. So it's essentially going to be split. Kind of the main thing you want to understand is that the rewards here, the 10% or this amount is always going to follow where the TCY lives. Either it's in the claims module, either this staking module or that staking module. The kind of the principle is the TCY follows, or the rewards follow where the TCY lives. This TCY staking contract will live inside the app layer, which would be a very good use case for it. And then that's going to be earning a proportion of the rewards based off the amount of TCY inside of the contract. in order to take that rune and then swap that using liquidity pool to TCY and then pay that back to the TCY stakers there. So that's how they're going to be earning TCY, given that the contract is getting rune. So for people that like the more details, there's going to be a TCY whitelist smart contracts, or a whitelist of smart contracts that enable this smart contract to be earning or to be receiving the rewards based off its TCY kind of balance that it has in here for staking. And that kind of might seem a bit overkill, but in the future you can have multiple contracts, some that are working with TCY and you want to have the rewards, and perhaps some that are working with TCY and don't get the rewards. So this whitelist here will start to control which smart contracts are receiving a part of the 10% TCY rewards. Okay, so that's TCY how it is and how it's going to be into the future. Let's just do a recap, and I want to cover the inbuilt buyback pressures, which I've pretty much covered anyway. I've got some notes down here that I'm going to refer to just to make this a bit easier. So whilst this doesn't guarantee price increases, it kind of helps with the adoption and the success of TCY. So firstly, it's the claim module. It's obviously earning rune from the unclaimed or the others part of the dashboard, and then using that to buy TCY. The treasury is doing buybacks, weekly buybacks as discussed, and we have the swap fees from the liquidity pool also being used to buy TCY. Then, because TCY holders receive 10% of the income, if they stake it, they're going to get rewards in rune. It's going to incentivize people potentially that aren't a part of THORFi to purchase TCY to get a part of that income. And that's a good alternative to being a bond provider or a node operator. It has benefits like e.g. liquidity. You don't have to wait for your node to go into standby in order to sell. You can pretty much sell whenever you want via the pool. Next, unlike LPing or being a bond provider, your TCY ownership, or particularly your rewards, cannot be diluted. So what that means is if you own, say, 30% of a liquidity pool, you're going to get 30% of the rewards for owning that liquidity pool. Then if a big whale comes in and adds a whole lot, you might be down to 5. So 5% ownership, so you're going to get 5% of the rewards. So the reward percentage is variable. Whereas because you're going to have a certain amount of rune per TCY owned, if you have your TCY in a staking module, you're always guaranteed to get that much reward per TCY, regardless of what anyone else is doing. Next, obviously we have the TCY contracts. So if people want to accumulate more TCY, earn TCY on the TCY, they'll have that. And then lastly, the rune price is volatile, and that also impacts the TCY dynamics. So if the THORChain system income increases, then that's going to increase the yield here. And if the rune price, just say everything else is normal, drastically increases, then obviously that'll start lift the TCY price up. I have to say the opposite is also true. If this is going down, then obviously the rewards here will reduce, and if rune price goes down, then obviously that will take the TCY price with it. Ultimately, there are a lot of dynamics here, and what that tries to answer the question is, when will TCY become $1? So the time frame can be greatly shortened or lengthened depending on the system's income, the rune price, the TCY pool volume, and ultimately the market's perception of THORChain's growth potential. So it could either reach or surpass $1 quickly, or it might take some time. It's up to the market, and no one can really know for sure. So whilst you could sit and calculate the price of rune, the system income, crunch the numbers to figure out how long, there's no real way of telling, just because of all these dynamics at play. So thanks for watching. I hope you found that useful. Let me know what you think of TCY in the comment section below. You think it's good? You think it's not good? If so, why? Don't forget to like and subscribe. And until next time, thanks. Bye.